Hey everyone, it's Lisa Danforth coming to you live from San Diego today. We are on Sustainable Leadership Live, and today I am super excited to have Shannon Hughes from Enliven Studios. She's going to be talking about the yes and mindset. Super excited to hear about this and how it can really help us lead sustainably for ourselves, our teams, and our community. But before we jump in, I really would like to share a little bit about Shannon and why we're chatting with her here today. So Shannon is an experiential trainer with a calling to enliven creativity and confidence and easeful collaboration. I love that. In groups of all shapes and sizes. And her practice Enliven Studios, she melds business strategy with improv training techniques to embolden trustful communication. So important in everything we do. Belonging and transformational leadership. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your brilliance.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. I want to get in and learn a little bit more about this yes and mindset and the practice of applied improv. Can you share a little bit about really what it is for those who are not familiar with it?
Sure. So applied improv is the practice of applying some of some critical improv tenets and concepts. So improvisational theater, the tenets and concept of improv theater, taking those out of the theater and off the stage and into business, into community, into relationship. So I know today we're going to primarily talk about yes and we can get into that in just a second. But there are a number of other tenets and concepts that really comprise what improvisational theater is. A lot of people think that improv, because it's made up, that two people or three people get on a stage and make something up for the first time. There's a common misconception that it doesn't have any structure, that there are no rules, right? That there is no training. But that's actually not the case at all. It's actually a very highly refined and highly structured art form. And so there are a number of concepts and kind of rules that make up how improvisers come up with their ideas and co-create together. And so applied improv is taking some of those concepts out of the theater and into, in my case, the workplace and into coaching.
When someone reaches out to you, what is it that they're sort of looking for? What are those words that I would love to be able to know how people can bring you into organizations, because the impact is, when we were talking in the green room,
Yeah.
so large. And I think it's
Yeah.
easy to sort of say improv. How would that impact us? But talk a little
Yeah.
bit about what you've seen. We talked about trust, empathy, communication,
Yeah.
handing off the conversation.
Yeah. 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 And really what I am kind of brought in for, and some of the objectives that I use this work to address are, from a training perspective, communications training, how to
Mhm.
be present, how to present, right? And kind of hold our stories a little bit lightly, so that just because we created that PowerPoint deck and everything's been perfect, we worked for so long on it, right? Yeah. And what if we get into the room and the client wants to talk about something totally different, right? We have to exercise those spontaneity muscles, right? And flex a little bit more into what's needed here in the moment. So presentation skills,
Mm.
communication skills, and then from a team building perspective, shifting dynamics, right? We're in the middle of this great resignation. People are coming in and out of teams. Team dynamics are changing. People are having new managers. They're being hired from their living rooms, right? And having to meet their teams water cooler style on Zoom. So how do we really connect and drive impact quickly? By getting people from different teams and across silos to communicate effectively with one another. So yeah, collaboration, communication, partnership, leadership development, working with executives and working with leaders to remind them, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on this,
Exactly.
about soft skills and emotional intelligence, and how to really kind of humanize the workplace, which, if anything has come up in the last 3 years or so, it's that we need to bring more human back into the
Yeah.
workplace. Just to inspire belonging and make sure people are connected in the right ways so that they can innovate and sell and that the businesses can grow and flourish.
And that's what I keep hearing, right? So there's study after study that shows that businesses who focus on their people rather than the profits. It truly is, it improves the bottom line faster than anything.
Yes.
Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit more about that? But like you said, like it really does help increase the business.
Absolutely. I mean, if you take just the concept of attrition alone and the high cost that it costs any organization
Mm-hmm.
to recruit, to hire, to interview, to onboard, and then you've got the 60-day, 90-day, clause where they, to wait until they perform, right? So then you've got that long period of time where that employee who's just been recruited, hired, and onboarded isn't necessarily driving business quite yet, right? Because they're still in that get to know you phase where they're understanding the business. All that has cost to it. So if you've got somebody who is a shining star, a high performer, thank God you just stole them from another competitor or whatever the case may be. You bring them in, and if it's a sink or swim scenario where leadership is not nurturing that relationship, through connection and building these intentional engagements where the team can come together and really get to know each other, whether it's through storytelling, which is something that I do, is help people get to know each other through storytelling, or just paying attention and coming out of the corner office, walking around, nurturing relationship, inquiring, getting curious, asking about backgrounds, and just being very intentional about that, and not really putting a lot of times what happens is, oh, someone else is going to do that, right? And
Right.
onboarding will be handled by the people who handle onboarding. Well, yes, and what about all the other, how important it is to have that human element and the visibility as a leader to build those relationships right off the bat, because we both
Really
know
do.
certainly that it's all about purpose and aligning with values. Otherwise, you're going to lose your talent.
It's not
Just as soon as
sustainable,
they walk
right?
in. Right. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I should have said in the beginning. Yes,
No, I mean,
sustainable leadership.
I love how it really sort of integrates, and it's sustainable within
Mm,
ourselves, because it's not sustainable to work in an environment that is where we're not able to thrive. It's also
right.
not sustainable when we're having so much turnover. So to bottom
Yes.
line and personally, and
Yeah.
what I'm really hearing is that the improv, the yes and, really invites us, even sort of inspires us to
Yeah.
be far more present, to really truly see the other person that's in front of us and engage in the conversation. In the green room, we were talking about an offering, which I think is
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating. Would you just share with us a little bit about that and how it can really build on conversations?
Yes, yes, yes. So in improv, we refer to ideas. Kind of. I'll talk through this. So we have this term offer, and what it means in the context of improvisational performance is we give, as actors and performers, we give one another offers. And those offers can be character endowments, they can be
Mhm.
relational endowments, they can be environmental endowments. And what they are is like nuggets of genius that the actors can grab onto and build a
Mhm.
story. And that's really where yes and comes into play. So I'll give you the same example I was giving in the green room, because it's early and we're hungry. um, but if one actor or performer is on a stage and they're kind of, making this gesture as if they're stirring a pot of pasta, and they're kind of, right? The other actor who may not yet be on stage but is watching from backstage sees that, and that's an offer. And they come because now I'm doing something. Okay, there might be food. Obviously, it smells good. That's an offer. So the next actor comes on stage and might say something like, "Mom, oh my gosh, are you making my favorite pasta? I have had a wretched day. I cannot wait to eat." Well, now we have a scene, right? Because I gave the offer of pasta, and now you've come in, the other actors come in and said, Mom, right? Now I know I'm mom. Now I know I'm probably at home. I know that there's been some sort of sporting event and that we are mother, daughter, mother and son. So now we have so much to work with. So these are offers. And what the other actor has done is said yes and. So now we say yes and to co-create the story together. And my invitation to clients that I work with is offers are everywhere, right? You can take this concept out of the theater. They're everywhere. They're with the gentleman bagging your groceries, right?
Mhm.
Who might be looking glum and might need a compliment or a little bit of gratitude to lighten them up. Maybe it's the way that your 13-year-old son, I have a 13-year-old son, is sitting, with his arms crossed or sitting staring out the window. That might be an offer to ask him how his day is, or sometimes with teenagers, it's an offer not to say
To just
anything at
leave the
all.
room. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. But the invitation is to really try to drop into the moment, as you were saying, and be present to the offers, because they are everywhere. And if we're going to be human and connect as humans and try to repair, or at least um, just lean into where we are right now in the world, which is a pretty tricky place. How can we lean in with curiosity and kindness and humanity, so that we really jump on those offers when we see them? And in a sustainable leadership from that perspective, goodness, I mean, countless ways to recognize those offers in a business setting or in a relational setting that might invite us to get curious and ask a question or engage.
I think take the lens through which we see and experience life, our life, and the way that we're responding, and perhaps look
Yes.
through the lens of someone else. As you're talking, I'm just seeing how incredibly impactful this is, because it gives us, this applied improv gives us the tools. This yes and allows us to pause. It gives us a tool in our toolbox, my favorite word, pause, and be really thinking about, how do I want to show up in this conversation? How do I
Yeah.
want the other person to feel? What's needed in this environment? I don't think it's giving us permission to people to, not show up, but to be curious and pause and be looking at, who do I want to be? And I think that that's so important. Just being present. And when you're talking, it really is making me think about, it's an ingredient. This yes and is an ingredient to the recipe. It's an ingredient to the culture of giving
Yeah.
us the tools to be seen and heard and invite other people to the table as well.
Totally. Yes. 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 And one thing to mention, and I'll just do this quickly because it's something important about the concept of yes and, is some people think that the word yes means agree, right? Because that's what yes means, right? Yes means that you agree. But in the concept of yes and, in this context, yes means to accept and receive. Accept and receive.
Oh, could you
So
repeat that just so we really sort of hit that home? Because that is a beautiful point.
yeah. So yes, most of us think of the word yes as agree. I agree with you. I say yes. But in the context of yes and, we're really saying that yes means accept or receive, right? So if you go back to that pasta stirring exercise, you know, I'm accepting your offer. I'm receiving your offer. Now that pot, that could have been a cauldron, right? I could have been a witch. It could have been anything. But it's accepting and receiving an offer. And then the word and, of course, is building upon it. So you take this into a collaboration meeting or an ideation session or a retreat or at the dinner table with your partner. It doesn't necessarily mean that you agree. So there's ways of saying, you might say to me, Lisa, in a brainstorming meeting, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great at this retreat if we got like a huge blimp that flew over the city and like it shot fireworks out of it? And I might go, that's a little out of our budget. But I say, yeah, yeah. And I'd like to think about that maybe a little bit differently. Like maybe I like the blimp idea, but the fireworks are a little much. So now I haven't said no, but I
Right.
didn't say no, Lisa. That idea is just. I said yes, but I didn't necessarily agree with you. But I did.
You saw
I,
the other
res-
person.
I saw the other person, and I gave them the respect for having contributed to the conversation, and then we continued forward.
I remember it when I was going through coaching certification. One of the things that we talk about is there's always a something within what the other person is saying, and to be able to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, what I like about that is this,"
Yes.
and so it can be approached all sorts of different ways. I love that. I just want to say Doreen Morin Van Dam is joining us today. She's actually in the other room as we're in San Diego. So
Yes.
Thanks for jumping on with us, Doreen. And yeah, this topic is so incredibly important in everything that we do, in everything that's going on. Like you said, the Great Resignation, just really humanizing the way that we're showing up. We talked in the green room a little bit about the tenets of the implied improv. Can you share some of that today? Some of the
Sure,
different
sure.
tenets.
Yeah. So yes, and obviously we talked about the predominant or the most widely known, I suppose. So I'm glad we talked a lot about that today. Others are make your partner look good. Make your partner look good, or make your partner shine, or make your partner into a hero. And I love that one because in the conversations around belonging and about exercising sustainable leadership in how we show up together, not just how I show up with my status, right? Make your partner look good, lift somebody else up and let their voice be heard. And sometimes that means we take a back seat, right? Another tenet of improv is, and you sort of alluded to this a while ago, which I love, which is, I forget the language you had put around it, but the idea is play the scene you're in. Be here. In other words, also known as be here now. You don't need to play the scene that's going to happen in an hour, right? I'm not going to play the scene where we just talk about the problems over and over again and the resentments that we have and the discontent and all that. We're playing the scene that we're in right now. Right now is what we have. And so let's play this scene. And then I have an aliveness scaffolding, or what I call my liveness scaffolding. And it's an acronym. It spells aliveness, taken from a Howard Thurman quote. And it lays out a number of others. I won't go through every single one, but I'll kind of give you a sense. It's awareness, listening, interdependence, vulnerability, engagement, right? So these are all human skills. And I'll tell you, I mean, when I saw the cross, that little crossfire of, when I was in improv classes, and I kind of went, oh my God, I get it. That was a magic moment, because you can see all the different alignment, and you wouldn't think that theater and performance has such a rooted and relevant place in the context of business.
I think it is foundational in it. And I love what you were talking about with the interdependence. I just want to give a shout out to Donna Cravatas. She says, great stuff. Shannon, your stuff is absolutely amazing. Thank you. Donna, thanks for joining us. But that interdependence, I think, is so incredibly important, that we can't be acting as silos. And when we are bringing this yes and, we have to understand that there's the interdependence of what our choices are, how we show up. That's just such an important piece, and just being present. It's hard. When you were talking, you were making me think about, and I'm not going to say this exactly the way that Brene Brown says it, but it's something, it's hard to hate someone close up. That when we are present, truly present, and with the other person, and hearing that, like, it doesn't mean that we're agreeing, but we are seeing how they're coming to the table with the conversation. I think we can then shift the conversation to be a more collaborative.
Exactly. And I love that quote from Brene Brown, because it's so true. It's so true.
I think that's why cyberbullying is such a big thing. It's easy to do when the person's not in front of us.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing we're coming up on time, if you can believe it. 20 minutes goes so fast. I do want to ask two quick questions. One, is there a question that I didn't ask you that you would have asked yourself, or that you want to share today before we jump off?
Ooh, a question that you didn't ask me that I'd like to share.
It can be no as well. It's just something that you're like, this is really important. I want to make sure that I mention it today so people can hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only quick thing would be, how I bring this work into the world. And we sort of touched on it, this work, first of all, I want to acknowledge very quickly, takes shape in education, therapy. There are people using this type of work to connect police officers and inner city youth. This work goes deep into trauma-informed therapy. It goes into PTSD with Vietnam vets. So it's a thing, as they say, as the kids say, it's a
real
thing. It's real. It's real. And it really takes root in all these different places. And so big shout out to all my colleagues who do this around the world in all different capacities. I happen to do it in business, and I do it in team building, smaller team building training, series of trainings around communication, and also large scale, fun, playful kickoffs, sales kickoffs, and big conferences with a microphone and a stage one of these days when we can do that again. And then also in really intimate settings like one-on-one coaching. I've got a few clients I'm working with just to embolden aliveness and make people feel like they can stand in their own power and their own voice. So it runs the gamut, and it's powerful stuff. I really appreciate you giving me a minute to talk with you about it today, Lisa.
Well, thank you for sharing your brilliance with the community, because it is so very important, especially given today with these soft skills. We're understanding the importance of really truly seeing people. See, Donna just popped another little note in here. Crucial work in any capacity. Absolutely. And that's what I love about this, is that it seems so trivial. It seems so simple. And I think we can dismiss things that are simple but incredibly impactful. So again, thank you for bringing your brilliance. I would love to ask one more quick question, which is, what habit or skill set do you bring from this that has helped you lead and live a sustainable life?
It really comes down to this concept of presence and yes and. I actually did a solo performance about this, I don't know, back in 2017. It's on my YouTube channel. But as an entrepreneur, certainly, and a solopreneur like I am, but any sustainable leader, the idea of yes and is so important when you think about how you build business, how you build relationship, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to say, okay, I'm going to say yes and to this. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to go to that conference. I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to that lead that I've been hoping to get in front of. I'm going to just kind of try to finish this presentation. It's not perfect, but it's done. And I'm going to get it in front of the people that need to hear it most. So kind of holding our stories a little bit lightly, being a little bit comfortable with vulnerability, which is a practice. This is all a practice. And then saying yes and being okay with the fact that, you know what, when your work is needed, like ours is, like your viewers' work is needed, say yes to it, because you're the only one who's going to bring it to the world.
Perfect. That was absolutely perfect. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it. Yeah. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to reach out to you?
My website, enlivenedstudios.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. It's kind of my primary platform. I'm at Shannon Dean Hughes. So my maiden name is in there, Shannon Dean Hughes, and I'm on Instagram as well. And I've got a free download. It's called Virtual Tips and Tricks for How to Enliven Up Your Virtual Gatherings. And that's at enlivenedstudios.com/download. So
will
those
you put that
few ways.
Link in the chat just in case so people can have it? That would be great. Thank you.
Yes. I will absolutely do that.
Awesome. Shannon, thank you so much. Join us next week, 10 a.m. East Coast, 7 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to be speaking with Laura Sorensen. Cannot wait for that conversation again. March 23rd, 10 a.m. East Coast, 7 a.m. Pacific. We'll see you next week, and have a fantastic day. Thanks again, Shannon.
Thank you.